A modern cargo ship carries thousands of containers across thousands of miles of open water, operating in total isolation for weeks at a time. But that isolation ends at the shoreline. A ship sails under the legal jurisdiction of its flag state, yet the moment it docks, it physically interfaces with the static infrastructure of an entirely different sovereign nation. To manage the friction of these overlapping jurisdictions, the International Maritime Organization sets the regulatory baseline. Following the realization that commercial vessels could be weaponized, the IMO adopted the ISPS code, the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code, under Chapter 11-2 of the SOLAS Convention. The ISPS code functions as a scalable risk management architecture designed to adapt to specific vessel types and varying operational environments. If every nation enforced its own unique, incompatible threat protocols, global supply chains would seize up at every border crossing. The ISPS code provides the universal language required to keep trade moving while mitigating risk. A security protocol is only effective if someone is legally accountable for its execution. This diagram illustrates the ISPS human architecture. At the top of the ship pillar is the company security officer, or CSO, who manages security compliance across an entire commercial fleet from shore. Directly beneath them, on board each individual vessel, is the ship security officer. The SSO executes the specific security apparatus while the ship is underway. Over on the port pillar, the counterpart is the port facility security officer, the individual managing the shoreside jurisdiction where the vessel will eventually dock. These three roles establish an active, continuous communication network. By anchoring protocols to specific individuals, rather than vague corporate entities, the code eliminates operational blind spots at every physical and administrative touchpoint. Before these security officers can deploy their physical defenses, they conduct a rigorous security assessment to scientifically map all their vulnerabilities. This assessment measures structural integrity, catalogs physical access points, evaluates personnel protection, and stress tests radio and telecommunication systems. The resulting data dictates the precise countermeasures mandated in the official security plan, either the ship security plan or the port facility security plan. Because these plans map the exact layout of a facility's defenses, they are heavily restricted. They are protected from unauthorized disclosure, and under normal circumstances, even port state control inspectors cannot demand to read them. Yet the code explicitly recognizes that rigid adherence to a plan can sometimes create new dangers. Section 6.1 guarantees the master of the ship overriding authority to deviate from the protocol to preserve the safety of the vessel. The security plan establishes a calculated, highly calibrated baseline, while preserving human judgment as the ultimate failsafe against unforeseen, complex crises. Static defenses degrade against evolving threats. To counter this, the code utilizes a three-tiered escalation architecture. Only the contracting governments hold the legal jurisdiction to dictate these security levels. Security Level 1 represents the baseline normal state, requiring standard minimum protective measures. This includes checking IDs at all access points, conducting routine deck patrols, and physically segregating embarking passengers from those disembarking. For cargo, Level 1 mandates routine visual verification, ensuring that tamper seals remain intact and the physical goods match the manifest prior to loading. If a contracting government identifies an elevated, non-specific risk of a security incident, they trigger Security Level 2. Here, the density of security operations expands. Facilities assign dedicated guards to patrol restricted areas, establish controlled zones on the shoreside, and conduct highly detailed invasive cargo checks. Security Level 3 is reserved for extreme scenarios, where a threat is imminent, probable, or already active. At this stage, operations contract severely. The ship restricts boarding to a single access point, completely suspends cargo handling, and prepares for potential evacuation. These protocols apply across the maritime industry, requiring unique vessels, from massive container ships to high-speed passenger craft, to adapt their specific countermeasures to the mandated level. By scaling operational disruption precisely to the credibility of the threat, the system avoids total economic paralysis while maintaining necessary defenses. The apex of vulnerability in maritime trade occurs when a heavily laden vessel interfaces directly with complex shoreside infrastructure. This physical connection creates an immediate operational tension if the ship arrives operating at a different security level than the port facility. The ISPS code dictates a strict protocol for this mismatch. A ship is permitted to operate at a higher security level than the port, but it can never operate at a lower one. To resolve this friction, the code utilizes the Declaration of Security. The declaration is a formal handshake protocol negotiated between the ship security officer and the port facility security officer, clearly dividing and assigning exact security responsibilities. It is frequently deployed during high-risk scenarios, such as the transfer of dangerous goods, or when a compliant vessel must conduct ship-to-ship activities with an offshore asset that falls outside the code's jurisdiction. This temporary, legally binding agreement synchronizes risk tolerances between sovereign entities for the duration of the physical interface. The entire theoretical framework relies on rigorous verification, formalized by the issuance of the International Ship Security Certificate. Under Regulation 11-2/9, Port State Control serves as the frontline enforcement mechanism to validate those certificates and ensure the corresponding plans are active. Port state authorities hold the right to demand pre-arrival information, board the vessel, verify the ship's documents, and inspect specific security protocols. If an inspector observes physical evidence or receives reliable intelligence indicating non-compliance, they establish clear grounds for intervention. Once clear grounds are established, the port state can execute severe control measures. They can delay the ship's entry, mandate highly invasive inspections, or expel the vessel from their waters entirely. These maritime officers enforce the boundaries of the code, translating administrative rules into physical deterrence on the water. The ISPS code establishes a transparent, universally enforceable language of maritime risk management, allowing global trade to cross sovereign borders under a unified security standard.